Hi, my name is John Kern. I'm the Advanced Planning Project Coordinator at Maryland Volunteer Lawyer Service, and I want to take a second to do a video which addresses racial disparities within advanced planning or estate planning. And so this is a large topic, but just here we go in about 2 minutes. So first, I'd say that there's estate planning is essentially, for folks that don't know, this is really about the transfer of assets from generation to generation, right? So a lot of that takes place with our will and going through probate, but there's also, while we're living, we talk about the financial power of attorney and the healthcare directive, but essentially finding out who our beneficiaries are, organizing our assets to move in between generations is really what estate planning is all about. So as you can imagine, this has a lot to do with housing. So passing our homes down to our kids and our grandkids is incredibly important. But if we look at the history of how racial inequity shows up in the housing market and really in the legal profession, there's a really, really poor track record here. So if you go down and talk to residents about the importance of doing estate planning, folks are going to look at you, you're going to get the side eye, right? And they're going to say, hey, is this more contract lending like we saw on the south side of Chicago, or is this some sort of nasty reverse mortgage you're trying to get me in, or so all of the history really of redlining, reverse redlining, that entire history is intertwined with the legal services. So that's the first really real barrier here. And then the second is there's a bit of I think an oral tradition versus a written tradition. Folks say, hey, people know who's going to get my stuff. This is a private issue. I don't want to bring attorneys in on it. And again, if we look to the history, I think that's pretty clear why that is. But really, one of the biggest issues is that when we talk about intergenerational wealth transfer, we can't take it for granted that the older generation has someone to pass on to that home. And I think it's pretty clear. The record's going to show that since the 1970s through the early 2000s and even now, over policing and mass incarceration, really the war on drugs, we locked up a whole generation, almost 2 generations of people who would have then inherited those homes and inherited those assets and continued to build those nest eggs for the family. So that's one of the hugest gaps. So we just see these enormous schisms within a kind of intergenerational wealth transfer that should happen naturally. But if you lock everybody up, now people have a record, they can't get employment, they're not going to be able to get on a mortgage. Even if there's not a mortgage, it can't get a home equity line of credit, things like that. So they're really locked out of the housing and financial system altogether. And this is the compounding problem of systematic racism in housing, and then again in the broader legal system. So I think that's one of the huge gaps that we see in estate planning and a big racial disparity that we're going to work with our partners to see that if we can't reconcile some of that, but it's going to take quite a while, and I think we're living with some of the results of quite frankly pretty predatory and nasty policies around race and housing in the U.S. So it's a big project, and we have fantastic community partners who are helping on this. But I hope that is a little bit of food for thought when we think about racial disparities and estate planning. Thanks so much.